Hello students, so today we will be starting with a new topic. The new topic name is Land Resources and Agriculture. This chapter is present in the class 12 book of geography, that is Land, Economy and People. From there only you will be finding the chapter, and from this chapter we will be understanding that what is agriculture and how land resources are being used as a part of the agriculture and in urban and rural planning. So let us discuss. Today we will be understanding about land use changes in India. So in India, how land is being used. So first of all, land use records are maintained by the Land Revenue Department. The land use categories add up to reporting area, which is somewhat different from the geographical area. The Survey of India is responsible for measuring geographical area of the administrative units in India. Now, if I talk about the land use records, you see land use records, how the land is being used, and what is the measurement of the land. It is all under the revenue department. It is all under the revenue department first of all, and how the land is being used as a part of the agriculture comes under the revenue department, that is the Land Revenue Department. First comes the land records. The land records come under the Land Revenue Department first of all, and second of all, the land use actually categorize that how the land is being used and in what way the land is being used. You see, this is completely different from the geographical area. Geographical area is completely different. It is under the geology part, but here we will be understanding about the uses of the land. And also the Survey of India. The Survey of India is actually responsible regarding the use of land. It comes under the geographical area of the administrative units in India. The Survey of India actually see how the land is being used, and it comes under the geographical area of the administrative units in India. You see here the geographical area is completely different. It comes under the geology part, but here how the land use is being used and measured comes under the geographical area of the administrative units in India. So this is the first one. And land use in a region to a large extent is influenced by the nature of economic activities carried out in that region. However, while economic activities over time, land, like many other resources, is used in terms of its area. Now, if I talk about land use is basically influenced by the economic activities. How? You see, agriculture is there. Some of the people are there who will be opening shops, who will be opening business. So these are all influenced by the economic activities first of all. And second of all, you see how the land has been changed over time and how the economic activities have been changed over time. It all comes under the land records, which means the administrative units of the land records. Also, on the other hand, the economic activities also influences the use of land and how much area has been come under the use of the land. This all comes under this land use patterns. And also, what kind of resources are being used, how the resources are a part of the economic activities, and how much land has been used as a part of the resource come under the land use change. So first comes the size of the economy grows over time as a result of the increasing population, changing income level, available technology and associated factor. As a result, the pressure on land will increase with time and marginal lands would come under use. Now, three stages. I have forgot to tell you regarding the three stages. As we have understood about the land use and how land use is being measured as a part of the administrative unit and how it is being influenced as a part of the economic activity. Now there are the three stages. Now what are the three stages that come under the land use change or under the measurement of the land use? First comes the size of the economy. Very, very important. There are different countries, there are different states, and each country and each state defines the economic activity, or you can say the size of the economy. So according to the size of the economy only, as a result of increasing population, changing income level and available technology and associated factor come under the land use. If we are using a particular land, how the particular land will be used. First of all, there is increasing population, how much population is there, what kind of economic activity will be carried out on that particular land. First of all, the income levels also come, the associated factors. Also, on the other hand, the available technology. Now, what kind of technology can be used on that particular piece of land also comes as a size of the economy, comes under the size of the economy. As a result, the pressure on land will increase with time and marginal lands will come under use. Now, slowly, as there are use of different factors, there will be a pressure of land and also the marginal lands. The use of the lands will become under use or will become under the harnessing of the resources. You see, if I talk about land, land is a part of the resource. So, as a result, according to the size of the economy only, the part of the land will be used. Secondly, the composition of the economy would undergo a change over time. In other words, the secondary and tertiary sectors usually grow much faster than the primary sector, specifically the agricultural sector. This type of change is common in developing countries like India. This process would result in a gradual shift of land from agricultural uses to non-agricultural uses. The changes sharp around urban areas while the agricultural land is being used for building purposes. Now, if I talk about the second point comes the composition of the land or the composition of the economy. Now you see the land changes over time, the economy also changes over time. Also, on the other hand, there is faster growth of secondary factors and the tertiary factors in comparison to the primary factors. So as a result, there will be more use of land. And if I talk about the secondary factor, under the secondary factor comes the agriculture. You see, our population is increasing. So as a result, more emphasis is given on the agriculture, more growing of the crops. So for that reason only, there will be more use of the land. Now, for example, in developing countries like India only there is more use of the land. So this process would result in a gradual shift of land from the agricultural uses to the non-agricultural uses. Also, on the other hand, in some of the consequences, there will be agricultural land, more crops will be grown, but in some consequences when there is advancement of the technology, so as a result there will be the use of the agricultural land to non-agricultural uses. There are a lot of land being used for non-agricultural uses. Also, on the other hand, this changes are sharp around urban areas while the agricultural land is being used for building purposes. This is one of the example it has been written here. You see, now there are changes in the agricultural land. In what way the changes actually come? You see, now some of the villages are converted into urban cities. Now some of the villages are converting into urban cities. So as a result, what happens? Most of the agricultural land will be converted as a building purpose. Most of the buildings will be constructed there. So as a result, there is no use of the agricultural land. It will be used as a commercial basis, which means for buildings and for other businesses. So as a result, now it will be shifting to non-agricultural purposes. So there is a shift of land when there is the composition of the economy comes under it. So first we have understood about the size of the economy, and second we have understood about the composition of the economy. You see, under the composition of the economy comes the developing countries, that how the developing countries are being changing and how the rural areas are being converted into urban areas, and there is shift of the land from the agricultural land to the non-agricultural purposes. Why? Because you see, here, there is advancement of secondary factors and the tertiary factors in comparison to the primary factors. And if I talk about the primary factors are naturally common in the rural areas in comparison to the secondary factors and tertiary factors, which are more common in the urban areas. So I hope so you have understood this one. Now, thirdly, through the contribution of the agricultural activities reduces over time, the pressure of land from agricultural activity does not decline. The reason for continued pressure on agricultural land, you see, most of the rural areas are being converted into urban areas, first of all, and second of all, there is also the shift of the agricultural lands to the non-agricultural purposes. But due to the increasing of the population, there are still demand for the agricultural lands. Now, why those agricultural lands are still in demand? First comes in developing countries, the share of population dependent on agriculture usually declines much more slowly compared to the decline in the sector share in GDP. Now, the number of people that the agricultural sector has to feed is increasing day by day. Now, you see, if I talk about this one, very, very important, in developing countries, the share of population is dependent on agriculture usually declines much more slowly compared to the decline in the sector share in GDP. Now, if I talk about the share of population on agriculture, it declines. It declines much more slowly. Now, in urban areas, if I talk about those people living in the urban areas, their dependency on agriculture, declines very slowly in comparison to their decline in the share of the GDP. Now, if I talk about the agricultural sector, now the agricultural sector is not much popular in the urban area. The agricultural sector is not much popular in the urban areas, but the share of GDP is very much of a popular kind, which means in comparison to the GDP share, the dependency of agriculture declines very slowly. It declines very slowly, first of all, and second of all, the number of people that the agricultural sector has to feed is increasing day by day. Also, the number of factors, the number of people, I mean to say the number of people, the population is still dependent on agriculture. As the population is increasing slowly, the demand for agriculture will also increase. Now here the first point is little bit of a confusing thing. Let me explain you again. Now comes the dependency on agriculture. If there is dependency of agriculture, if there is dependency of agriculture, it will be declining much slowly in comparison to the share of GDP. In comparison to the share of GDP. Now, why it will be decreasing very slowly? Because most of the people, due to the increasing population, most of the people will be still dependent on agriculture. Most of the people will be still dependent on agriculture. So as a result, the dependency of agriculture will be declining very slowly. It will be declining very slowly in comparison to the share of GDP, which means the sector's share in GDP. It will be declining still slowly, which means the dependency on agriculture will still be trending. The dependency on agriculture will still be trending. Why? Just because due to the increasing population. If there is increasing of the population, there will be more dependency on agriculture. I hope this is clear. Now, we will be understanding about the agricultural land use in India. Now, as we have understood the factors, the stages regarding the land use, now we will be understanding about the agricultural land use in India. First comes the land resource is more crucial to the livelihood of the people dependent on agriculture. Agriculture is a purely land-based activity, unlike secondary and tertiary activity. In other words, contribution of land in agricultural output is more compared to its contribution in the output to the other sector. Thus, lack of access of land is directly correlated with incidence of poverty in rural areas. Now, if I talk about agriculture, first of all, agriculture is a primary activity. Second of all, agriculture, the demand on agriculture is still more popular in comparison to the secondary and tertiary sector. The demand on agriculture is still popular in comparison to the secondary and tertiary sector, but still some of the people in rural areas does not have much access to the land, which means land is not much being used for the agricultural purposes, and for that reason the output is very much less. The output is very much less in comparison to the area of the land. You see, if the area of the land will be big, for that time only the output will be huge, but the area of the land is small, there is not much access to the land, so as a result there is not much output of those products. So as a result, most of the people goes under poverty in the rural areas. This is the first issue that has been highlighted here. And second issue, quality of land has a direct bearing on the productivity of agriculture, which is not true for other activities. Now, quality of the land, very, very important. If the quality of the land is very much bearable, then only there will be more growing of the crops, more productivity of the crops. If the land is not productive, if the land is barren, then there will be no growing of the crops. But it is not so in the secondary sectors and in the tertiary sectors. I hope this is understood. You see, let me again explain you regarding the first one. Now, if I talk about agriculture, agriculture is completely a land-based activity, which means it is a primary activity. And second of all, if I talk about the agricultural output is still less in comparison to the growing of the crops. Why? Because most of the people have no access to the agricultural land. Most of the people have no access to the agricultural land. So as a result, much crops are not grown, and for that reason only the output is very much less. And most of the people, for that reason, who are not getting accessibility to the land, are going under poverty in rural areas. You see, in other words, contribution of land in agricultural output is more compared to its contribution in the outputs in other sectors. factors. Thus, lack of access of land is directly correlated to the incidence of poverty in rural areas. Very, very important. Excess of land. If there is no excess of land, or if there is little excess of land to the people in rural areas, then it will be going under poverty. The people will be going under poverty, which means it will be converting to the poverty itself if there is no contribution of land in a better way. Now, lack of access of land is directly correlated to the incidence of poverty in rural areas. I hope so this is understood. Now you see, in the secondary sectors and in the tertiary sector, there are more giving of the output, but in the agricultural sector, which is the primary activity, there is not much giving of the output. So as a result, what had happened, it is actually a loss. Now, if the land is given in a proper way to each and every individual in a rural area, first of all, and if the land is distributed properly, then there will be more access to the output. There will be more growth of the output, and the people will also not go under the poverty line. So, this is the first point, and second point comes regarding the quality of the land. The quality of the land also affects the agricultural part. Now, third point, in rural areas, aside from its value as a productive factor, land ownership has a social value and serves as a security for credit, natural hazards or life contingencies, and also add to social status. Very, very important. If I talk about the use of land, for example, if I talk about the use of the land, if there is contribution of the land to the people, then there will be enhancement of the social status. There will be enhancement of the social status. There will be the enhancement of the security, which means people will be secured. If there is any contingency, also people can live on those land, or you can say they can be dependent on those land. You see, there are other natural calamities, there are contingencies. So as a result, if there is proper distribution of land, at least people will not go under poverty, and people can make use of those land so that they can do the meager income. Also, on the other hand, if I talk about the use of the land, use of the land also adds to the social status. Very, very important. The use of the land serves as a security. First of all, it serves as a credit facility. Second of all, and third, it also contributes to the enhancement of the social status, and also due to other contingency issues. Which means if there is any contingency, also this can be solved out with the help of the land. Now, those which raise the yield of any particular crop per unit of land, and those increase the total output per unit area of land from all crops grown over one agricultural year by increasing land use intensity. Now here we will be understanding about the land use intensity. Now, what do you mean by the land use intensity? This means, according to the area of the land, how many crops has been grown and what is the output. This is known as the land use intensity. You see here the yield of any particular crop per unit of land, and which increase the total output per unit area of land from all crops grown over one agricultural year increases the land use intensity. Now, how land use intensity is increased? You see, if any particular or specific yield of crop is grown on a particular land, according to those crop which is grown on that particular piece of land, and the output being raised of that particular crop, it is known as the land use intensity. And land use intensity actually contributes to the economic activity of a particular country. In the land use activity, first comes the yield of a particular crop. First comes the yield of a particular crop. The yield of a crop, and second comes, yield of a particular crop, and second comes how much crops has been grown on a particular piece of land and how it is contributing to the economic activity on that agricultural year. The agricultural year comes of 1 year. The agricultural year of that comes for 1 year. Now, within that agricultural year, how many crops has been grown on that particular piece of land actually increases the land use intensity. I hope so the fourth point is clear. The land use intensity is very much important, which actually signifies the growth of crop on that particular piece of land during that agricultural year, and it also contributes to the economic activity of a particular country. And with this growing of the crop only, we will be understanding that how much output has come from that growing of the crop. I hope so you have understood regarding the land use intensity. Now we will be understanding about the common property resources. Very, very important regarding the common property resources. Now what do you understand regarding the common property resources? Here you see land according to its ownership can be broadly classified under two broad heads: private land and common property resources. While the former is owned by an individual or a group of individuals, the latter is owned by the state for the use of the community. Here you see land. Now land has been divided according to its ownership. Now how land is being divided according to its ownership? First comes the private land. The private land comes, and second comes the common property resources. Now if I talk about the private land is actually owned by an individual or a group of individual. Now common property resources are being owned by the society itself or by the community of the society itself. So here how the private land and the common property resources or land are being used. If I talk about the private land is being owned by the individual or a group of individual. I hope this is clear. And second comes the common property resources. The common property resources actually comes under those people who belong to a particular community, which means the community will be owning the land first of all, and second of all, how those land will be used by the state itself and by the country itself. And third comes the common property resources provide fodder for livestock and fuel for the household, along with other minor forest products like fruits, nuts, fiber, medicinal plants, etc. Now, what is the use of common property land or common property resources? First of all, common property land or resources actually contribute to other items. The other items like crops are there, fodder are there, foods are there, sorry, fruits are there. Fruits are there or small foods are there. Also on the other hand, regarding the medicinal plants, the common property resources will be contributing to all those crops, to all those items. And second of all, in rural areas, such land is of particular relevance for the livelihood of the landless and marginal farmers and other weaker sections, since many of them are dependent on the income of the livestock as they have little access to the land. Now if I talk about the common property resources, how common property resources is actually important in the rural areas. In the rural areas, you see, first of all, most of the people are dependent on agriculture. Their income comes from the agriculture land first of all. And if I talk about the livestock, if those people, if the marginal farmers or if the weaker sections of the society have no access over the land, then they will be having a meager income from the livestock itself. For the taming of the livestock also, the land is being required. So as a result, this is the use of the common property resources. Common property resources are important for women as most of the fodder and fuel collection is being done by them in rural areas. They have to devote long hours in collecting fuel and fodder for the degraded area of the common property resources. Now, common property resources is very much important for the women. How? First of all, they will be collecting fuel. They will be collecting fodder. Fuel, here comes the wood. In most of the areas also, they will be collecting wood for fuel, because with the help of the fuel wood only, they will be doing the burning purposes, which means they will be cooking food, and other fodder are being collected from those forests which are under the common property resources. From there also they will be earning some meager income. Common property resources can be defined as community's natural resource where every member has the right of access and usage with special obligation without anybody having property rights over them. Community forests, pasture land, village water bodies are considered to be the example. Now, if I give example of the common property resource, the common property resources gives an example of the community forest. The community forests are there. Also, on the other hand, pasture land, village are there, water bodies are there, which come under the common property resources. With those common property resources, only people will be collecting their food. They will be collecting their fuel. They will be collecting other items so that they can have some of the meager income. And common property resources is for everyone without having any property rights. It is being distributed to each and every people living in the rural area. I hope so you have understood this one. You see the first point. Now we will be recalling with the help of the previous point. The first point comes the use of the land. You see the land is being divided between the private lands and the common property resources. Second comes the common property resources. The common property resources is very much important for collecting fuel, for collecting fodder crops. Also, on the other hand, for the collection of the medicinal plants also, common property resources are important. And most of the villagers, most of the people who belong from the weaker section or who are the marginal farmers, they are actually dependent on those land from where they can earn some meager income. Also, common property resources are important for women. How they will be collecting wood, they will be collecting other plants and foods from those common property resources. So for them also, for the women also, the common property resources are very much beneficial of their own kind. Also, on the other hand, for the degraded from the degraded area also, they will be collecting some of the essential items. Now, if I talk about the common property resources is a part of the nature's community resource. It is a part of the nature's community resource, and everybody have access to those land, which come under the common property resources, which means no one will be accessing it as a private property. No one will be accessing it as a private property, first of all, and each and every people are welcome to use those fodder, the fuel, or any other medicinal plants that are under the common property resources. Also comes the water bodies, also comes the forest areas, and also comes the pasture lands and the village area. I hope so you have understood regarding the common property resources. So up to this much only. So here in this chapter, what we have understood about the use of the land, that what are the stages of the land use. And second comes the agricultural land in India, how agricultural land is being used in India. And third, we have understood about the common property resources. I hope so you have understood this chapter, and if you want to know any of the courses regarding this institute, then you can contact us in this number which is on the screen 86383 91721. And thank you for watching my video.